Well, in the bowl, we've got the 3 eggs, a cup of sugar, a teaspoon of vanilla, and the half a cup of oil. And then you add in the flour that was measured out, 2½ cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and a half a teaspoon of salt. And just mix that in. I added 12 ounces of chocolate chips. Now, I still use 12 ounces of the mini chocolate chips, despite the fact that they have changed the amount in the package to 10 ounces. So I buy extra bags because I like lots of chocolate chips. I find this cute little, it's a bowl scraper. It's just a plastic bowl scraper, but it comes in very handy because it makes it easy to incorporate the chips into the dough and to scrape things off. And I also use it in forming because you can really scrape the bowl really well and incorporate the chips evenly into the recipe. When I first started making this, I found it would spread when it was baked. So I decided that it needed to be refrigerated before you formed it. That way the loaves didn't spread out too much before you even got it in the oven. So I'll refrigerate it. If I want to make it in the same day, I'll do it for about an hour, or sometimes I'll just make a batch and put it in the refrigerator overnight and bake it in the morning. Okay, so what you want to do, you're going to divide your dough into three pieces, and you kind of just eyeball it. And sometimes it's a little sticky, but I'll just kind of roll it on the mat just to get it. This has got too much on it, so I'm going to take some off and put it in there. And then what I'll do, I do 3 logs across the pan, and they fit nicely. And because the dough is chilled, it's not going to spread much. Okay, and when you get the logs on all made the way you like them, sprinkle the tops with cinnamon sugar as well. Just a little bit, or a lot if you like a lot. It's kind of just a matter of taste and preference. Okay. Now if you have a convection oven, I bake this on 325 on convection bake, and it should look lightly browned. And then I'll let it sit for a little bit before I start to slice it. I usually cut off the ends for whoever wants to nibble on them while the rest is baking. And then start to slice. And you just kind of eyeball it. Go ahead and you turn it on its side, because we're going to want to bake this again. Kind of like biscotti that you bake, double bake. And then I'm going to sprinkle the sides with cinnamon sugar. Okay, all right, so now when you have it all, and you see sometimes you have to just kind of fit the mandel bread onto the pan, and then I take a little thing of cinnamon sugar and just kind of sprinkle the sides. And then this is the second bake that you take out. And then all I do is I just let it sit here like this and let it cool. And I'll let it sit sometimes overnight, because the last thing you want to do is wrap it up if it's somewhat warm, because then it gets real soggy. You don't want it to be, especially mandel bread. It keeps for quite a while and it freezes beautifully.
Yay! Thank you for making that. So I was going to ask Farilyn some questions now. If you have any questions, you can put in the chat as well. But my question is, Farilyn, why did you prefer to do that convection oven rather than just a regular oven? And is it different if you use a regular oven to make it?
Well, when you have a convection oven, it has a fan that circulates the air all through the oven. And it makes the crust a little crispier. And I find if I use the convection, it gets the crust gets crispy, but it still is a little bit softer on the inside. And then after it's double baked, I just like the texture of it. And it also is, convection's also good if you're baking a couple things at a time, because usually the heat and everything from a regular oven comes down, or you don't get it to circulate as well. And especially if you have a couple trays in the oven, getting it on convection will keep the heat circulating much better. It also helps in browning.
Does it have to cook longer then, did you say, in a regular oven?
No, it actually would cook less time, because it tends to be, now I lowered the temperature to 325 instead of 350 because the convection can get hotter. And I may do it a little bit shorter time.
Okay. And so what are some of the things that you would add to the recipe? And I heard something about like cherries you might even add.
Oh, my favorite is, I decided the recipe originally called for chocolate chips, or you could split, do 6 ounces of the mini chocolate chips, which I think work much better than the big ones, and raisins. But then I thought, you know, I love dried cherries. And so I put in, that's my favorite, is like 6 ounces of dried cherries and 6 ounces of chocolate chips, because the cherries have that tartness to them, and with the sweetness of the chocolate, it's really a good combination.
But do you add, so you have decorated these too?
Yes. You can make some chocolate, like chocolate sauce or chocolate, and dip them into, like, you could either do half of a piece and dip and make it chocolate and just kind of lay it on some wax paper and let it harden. You can roll the roll it in nuts after you've dipped them, because there aren't nuts in the recipe. You could put nuts in if you prefer, but this recipe didn't have nuts, and I kind of like it the way it is. Or you can take the mandel bread and dip one side of it in chocolate, and then put some, holiday time, maybe some sprinkles or whatever, on it, just to make it a little bit more festive looking.
And where did you get that scraper?
Oh goodness.
That was like the greatest thing. I mean, maybe it's the only one.
You can probably get them at the dollar store.
Really?
I probably got it at, I think that one was like through Pampered Chef. I've gotten them as little, I'm trying to think where else you could maybe get them. Probably Amazon, online, a cooking store. I don't know if Williams-Sonoma has them or not, but it's very handy because it's plastic and things don't stick to it. And it makes, mixing things a lot easier.
And someone was asking, I noticed that you, and this is another topic too, I was going to ask you some kitchen gadgets, things that you would recommend. And someone did ask about cutting on the silicone mat. Do you?
You have to be very careful.
Okay.
Because I love using the silicone mats, but I have one that I probably use quite a bit, and I kind of keep it for the mandel bread. But you don't want to cut too hard on those, because those you can cut through them, and that's not, they kind of lose their effectiveness that way. I mean, you can always use parchment paper or just grease the pan, but I've always used the silicone baking mats because I really like those.
Okay. No, they look Oh, somebody said it's called a French scraper. Thank you. And Farilyn, where have you, these are like such a favorite, and you have given them at some special NCJW events as well, right?
Oh, the Mandel bread has traveled far and wide. It's gone on airplanes with me to many conventions, because we found that when you sit around at business meetings at the conventions, I usually bring some and put it on the table for everybody to munch on. It's been to Washington Institute. It's been on the buses to Jeff City when we go down for advocacy days. Gosh, it's been to Back to School Store and Couturier and you name it, wherever, it's kind of like if somebody wants me to bake something, I said, I'll bring a Mandel bread. But it's gone in my suitcase at times.
And did you make it for trivia night as well?
Oh, I may have. Yeah, I may have and had it on our table. Yeah. Yes, it's
So
an easy recipe.
Yeah, it looked very easy. And is there any other something that you enjoy baking besides the Mandel bread? Is there something else?
Oh gosh,
that's a favorite of yours?
Well, I usually make around Rosh Hashanah rugula. I like to make that. I'm not a fan. I would make honey cake, but I'm not a fan of honey cake, so I don't ever make it. But around the holidays, and then I love to bake cheesecakes. That's my my favorite. That's what I taught the cheesecake classes at Kitchen Conservatory. And I like to just I kind of make up different recipes and different toppings and different flavors for cheesecakes. I usually make, one of my favorites is a s'mores cheesecake, which is really good. Yum. It's a graham cracker crust and chocolate cheesecake, and then it's got little marshmallows and chocolate, and you decorate it. It's a real good one. But I love to bake all kinds of things. I've made another favorite is a poppy seed bread that has also made the rounds at convention and other events.
We'll have to do another one of you making your cheesecakes too.
Yeah, I love making cheesecakes.
Someone was asking if everyone's giving us like places to find the scrapers, but okay. About dunking your Mandel bread, are they good to dunk?
Oh yeah, I think so. I usually don't. I like having it along with coffee, but you can eat it however you prefer.
That's what the question was. Yeah, are they like moist enough to eat by themselves?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, biscotti is a lot harder, and I find it drier also. That's why I like the Mandel bread better. But I remember I took a bunch of my Mandel bread up to Chicago last Christmas for my son married an Italian girl up in Chicago, and they didn't know, what exactly it was when I said Mandel bread. So I just said, this is my Jewish biscotti. And they really enjoyed it. So it was good. It's making the rounds a lot of places. Well, what's nice about it is it's a recipe that's easy. I mean, you can take it to people. It's easy to make. It freezes great. It's not a messy kind of thing, if you have cakes with icings and stuff. It's very portable.
Someone asked what minor changes have unintentionally led to a really different outcome, like chilled butter, unchilled dough. I know you said that if you hadn't chilled the dough, that it would kind of spread. So are there other things that you've done?
Well, I usually keep, I do keep ingredients like the eggs at room temp, because they tend to, when an egg is at room temperature, it mixes better. It's just, ingredients are always better at room temperature. And that's one of my pet peeves about cooking, is when people will tell me they have bad luck with things, and I'll say, well, the first thing you have to do is read the recipe. That's one thing I do. I read a recipe before I try anything. I'll read it a couple of times, because undoubtedly there are things that are in the recipe that may not be in your ingredient list, or there's something, you know, in the ingredient list that isn't covered in, you know, how, in the method of how to make it. So I'll usually read it all, and that way I know, and that way you know what needs to be at room temperature, and if you know, if you need to let your butter sit out. And it's also good to, I generally prep everything ahead of time before I start baking it. I'll get everything measured out and have everything all in front of me before I start making it. And that way you don't forget things, and it just makes things go a lot smoother.
Right. I've been there before, where I've started something and I don't have everything measured out, and you're like scrambling. And there's a funny question from Jessa, and she's asking if you have room in your fridge for people to hang out and wait for the next gourmet creation, because I guess your refrigerator was so big.
Yeah. Actually, that refrigerator is really big. I have to stand on a step stool to reach the top of the back of it when I clean it out. It holds a lot, so it's great.
Yeah, and someone said, yeah, that if you don't do all the measuring of everything before you start making something, that you realize you're missing an ingredient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
From Melissa. And we wanted to also have a chance for people to talk, but we were going to start with you, Farilyn, as far as sharing any funny holiday stories that you might want to tell us about.
I have one. Well, I have a few, but this particular one, I made this Mandel bread. I made a couple batches of it. So when you see, you know, when I put it on the stove, I'll generally leave it on my cooktop, because the grates, you know, it's a good place to let it cool. And I had 2 pans of Mandel bread cooling overnight. So my son was home at the time, and I came downstairs in the morning and I saw that 2 of the front of each tray, the 2 loaves were gone. Was completely gone. And I said to him, I said, well, did you have friends over, or did you all eat the Mandel bread? He looked at me like I was crazy. He's like, I haven't had a piece. And then I remembered, I looked around, and I used to have 2 Labrador retrievers. And out of the corner of my eye, I'm standing by the counter, and I see my black lab Lucy with her paws up on the counter trying to get another piece. But apparently when I was asleep, the 2 of them must have had a feast, because I came down and it was gone. And I couldn't figure out until I saw her trying to get her head on high, you know, far enough back to try and get the other log. But it kind of freaked me out, because I thought, oh my God, it had chocolate in it. And I don't know if she shared it with her brother Albert, because she was definitely the alpha dog, and I don't have either of them with me anymore. But that was, I couldn't believe she ate, you know, hopefully she shared it with him, but didn't get sick or anything. It was amazing. My son was just, he was just amazed. He says, because I accused him of eating it all, and he thought I was nuts. But dogs enjoyed it. The dogs said,
maybe this is a new thing too. You can have this dog treat. Well, make the dog sick.
Yeah, no chocolate. You know, I was worried because the chocolate isn't good for dogs, but
right.
They didn't have any problem with it. They thoroughly enjoyed it.
So, thank you, Farilyn. And before we have the rabbi come on, we were going to open it up to all the viewers, and you can either put it in the chat and we can call on you, or raise your hand in the participant area to tell any kind of funny stories. But I know we have a few people on here. Oh, there's Nancy Barbaro raising her hand. Nancy, you want to go ahead? And by the way, everyone should, whoever picked up the Mandel bread at the NCJW office, the recipe was in there. We will also, there you go, Nancy. We will also be emailing that as well after this. If you didn't pick up your Mandel bread. There,
So I just wanted to say that I kind of emailed yesterday and said after I picked up the Mandel bread and found the 4 pieces, I thought, uh-oh, what if I eat it all before Jim comes? But what I really want to say is, since Farilyn and I are, at least I am older, that for 30 years we roomed together at every convention, all those ones that she talked about, whether it was Central District or Washington Institute or National Convention, she always came with the Mandel bread, and people gathered in our room, or I helped her carry it to another room in the evening after meetings or on the table at meetings. And it's just a real wonderful NCJW Farilyn memory for me. And thank you, Farilyn, for doing this. This is so special.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Thank
it's
you.
like a staple for NCJW. Wait, Ellen Alper, will you tell your story?
So our holiday story is Passover, and every year at Passover we're at my Aunt Lenore's house, and each mom at the table gets a set of candlesticks in front of them to light before we start the Seder. And 3 years in a row my mother caught the Haggadah on fire in the candlesticks, as she would hold it and read it and forget that the candlesticks were there, and she lit it on fire. So it kind of wasn't Passover if we didn't have an extra little fire at the table. And you know what? My mom's not here anymore. I miss that a lot. I gladly light the Haggadah on fire right now. You know, I mean, it's just those holiday things you remember.
Yep.
Definitely. Jessa Glick had a funny story as well. Are you on here, Jessa?
Oh no, I'm still cracking up over Ellen. I'm sorry. This was a Passover story, and I hope it passes over through your mind, and then you can let it go. But it's a fond memory of the first time that, well, I imbibed, and I was probably about 12 years old. I had already been bat mitzvahed, and a big family value was during the Seder to always invite somebody that wasn't Jewish or a family over to learn a little bit, because we were living in a small rural town in West Michigan, but I digress. So my friend didn't like Manischewitz at all. And so she had, you know, the mandatory the 4 glasses, right? They were little itty bitty ones, but I was also itty bitty too. So I ended up having 8 glasses on an empty stomach before dinner was served, and they were maybe like half an ounce each. It didn't take much. But by the end of the dinner, my mom always had like the thing of Cool Whip out, and the fruits and the desserts. And my dad was sitting there, and they knew something was going on. Like, of course, I'm like running around the house, winning the Afikoman and winning everything. And I was winning with the Cool Whip. And so I was looking at the Cool Whip with this big spoon, and I looked at my dad in his face, and he said, "You better not. There's going to be consequences." And just slow motion dragged that Cool Whip right down his face. and that was pretty much the end of it. He just looked at me. He was a joker, you know. He knew how to take a joke and to dish it too. But they said that we would talk the next morning, and we did. Talk. And so Lisa, I now pass it on to the next funny story.
Thank you. I see Diana Fine has her hand raised. Hi, Diana.
Hi. Well, I wish I had a great Rosh Hashanah story, but I can't think of one right now. But I have a Passover one also.
Sure.
And that is, I grew up in Detroit, and so after we moved to St. Louis, we used to go back to Detroit for most of the holidays. And our family always had sinkers for the matzo balls. My dad liked really hard matzo balls, and so my mom would always put in extra matzo meal and mix it in until it got really like almost like a rock, but they were still good. And so no matter how hard she made them, every year my dad would put a spoon into the matzo ball and say, Leah, it's not hard enough. Can you make them harder next year? And so we flew up one year, and I had the kids go with me to the garden, and we picked up rocks. And we brought them in, and we boiled them, and we washed them to make sure
No.
they're really sanitized. And put a rock in the center of each matzo ball that was going to be served to my dad. And as he started to put his spoon in, he goes, Leah, these are, oh my gosh. And all of a sudden, he really put force on it, and this matzo ball broke in half, and a rock popped out. And he says, well, you finally made him hard enough. So
Right.
we teased him after that.
That is so funny. Thank you. Our trusty operator, Lauren, said that she had something that she wanted to share too.
It made me think of it when Farilyn was telling her story. I was hosting Thanksgiving right around, and my family is obsessed with deviled eggs. So I have to make at least like 24 of them. I mean, it's just, there's never enough. And then there's still fighting over them. And I had made them, and like nobody was really there yet. I was just getting set up. I was putting out, the pickle tray and everything. And I was getting my deck set up so if people wanted to sit outside because it was a nice day. And I walk outside, and I had everything set out on my counter. And I walk outside, and I tell you, it couldn't have been more than 15 seconds when I realized, oh, one of my dogs is tall enough to get on that counter. So I walked back inside. There was not a single deviled egg left. He had both his paws up on the counter and was just looking at me. And I honestly, I don't know if any of you have seen the movie Anchorman, but honestly, the only thing I could think in that moment was like, I'm not even mad. I'm impressed. Like, how did you just do that? You must have just like gone full vacuum on those things.
Oh my gosh, too funny. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to share? We have a few more minutes. Or Farilyn, if you have another one of your stories that you wanted to share, because you said
Shirley
you had a few.
Shirley is raising her hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's on mute. I'm asking her to unmute. I think she's still talking though.
Uh-oh.
Shirley,
Can you unmute her, Lauren?
there you go. There you
I
go.
have one. Okay. I have a Passover story too. I had dear friends, Ellen probably knows about this, who had moved to Kansas City, and she always loved my Passover cake. And when she and her family moved to Kansas City many, many years ago, I found out the little round hat boxes that children would use for their dancing shoes was perfect for the 10 egg Passover cake, the big high Passover cake. So I would bake it and send it to her. And every year somehow somebody would come to St. Louis and bring the big hat box back again. And the next year I'd pack it up at Passover time and bake the cake and send it back to Kansas City. And it went back and forth, the same cake box for years, probably 15 years it went back and forth. And they were always so glad to have it. And I got a kick out of it. And then when she passed away, I sent it back one more time, and I said, this box wants to come back to Kansas City one more time. And I wrote a little poem, and I said, here it is. Gloria's gone, Al's are gone, but here's the cake, and the box belongs back here. So
Oh,
That's sweet.
that's so super sweet. Thank you.
wonderful experience for me, and they really enjoyed it.
Thank you. And I see Michelle Seiler has something as well.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So this is actually my father's story, but I inherited it to tell this time of year. So in honor of my dad, I will tell the Sukkot story. So when he was growing up, he lived down like a Page and Hamilton, and in a duplex, like people did, you know, working class folks, and they had a sukkah in the backyard. Their neighbors always put up a sukkah. And one day a pig got loose, a big boar got loose from the stockyards and ran through their sukkah. So then the neighbor who owned the sukkah was like, you know, we don't know what to do because a pig ran through, you know, is it kosher? Is it kosher? Is it kosher? So they sent somebody, like Little Moisture, somebody down to the Romania shul and brought back the rabbi. They had to look at everything and think about it. And, you know, it's like the village of Chelm here. And he looked about it, thought about it, and said, no good, you got to take it down and start from scratch. So I have to share that once a year. So I'm so thrilled to share that story with you.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a few more minutes, but I don't know if anyone else has anything, or Farilyn, you want to say anything else? Share a story.
Well, as far as Passover goes, I had another story. My mother used to make the sponge cakes all the time. And, you know, when she'd make them in St. Louis, they'd always come out great. You use the 2-pan and generally turn it over. And a lot of times people turn it over like on a soda bottle and let it, you know, kind of like an angel food cake. So after they moved down to Florida, it's a little challenging baking down here with the humidity and there's just different factors. And one year we were sitting in the kitchen and she took the cake out and proceeded to turn it over. The entire cake fell out of the pan. And if I would have had a camera, the look on my mother's face was priceless. So then, and my husband at the time happened to be sitting there watching, and we were just like horrified. Nobody knew what to say. But from then on, every Passover, my son and my husband would come into the kitchen whenever my mother made the cake to make sure to see if the cake was going to stay in the pan or if it was going to fall out of the pan. And it became like a Passover tradition on the sponge cake, because it was like, I don't know why it did that, but there are some times that are challenges in baking with weather and everything. So it was a little different.
Definitely. Melissa Forrester. Does Melissa not want to talk?
If she didn't want to get on, I can tell the story.
Okay. She's like, oh, good. I don't think she's.
She put it in the chat room, but basically, my brother and his wife and family live in Wichita, Kansas. And for whatever reason, we couldn't get there for Passover one year. But all of his friends, they're not Jewish, and they wanted to know what a Passover Seder was all about. So we went in the middle of summer and threw a full-blown Passover Seder, from wine to sponge cake to farfel cookies to everything that we do on Passover, just so we could share it with friends that had never experienced it before. And it was really cool. There must have been 35 people there.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And obviously left an impression because my daughter is Melissa Forrester, in case you all haven't figured that out, and she still remembers it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay.
Susan Katzman has her hand up.
Oh, Susan Katzman?
Yes. Quick question.
Yes.
I know we have other people on here, such as Joanne Goldstein, who make their own mandel bread.
Ooh.
And I'm just curious how their recipes are any different, or variations they use different from Farilyn's.
That's a good question. Does anyone want?
Yeah. Okay. Thank
Sorry,
you,
Joanne.
Susan.
You put her on the
Yeah,
spot.
Farilyn, yours is delicious.
Thank
But
you.
mine is a little different.
Yeah.
My recipe started out from my grandmother, who made it with finely chopped pecans and had to be white raisins. It had to be the white ones. Well, I don't like nuts, so any recipe that calls for nuts, I automatically substitute chocolate chips. And then I was making the recipe, and since I don't keep kosher, I know the origin of it is the reason there's oil is because you could eat it after a kosher meal because it didn't have any milk or butter or anything. But I love cooking with butter. I'm also a baker. So my recipe I've adapted to be, I use a half of it in oil and a half of it in butter. And I found that to be very popular, very good. My recipe is a little different in that it's you know, the proportions are a little different. Mine comes out crunchier than yours, but not like a biscotti, somewhere between the biscotti and yours. It's just a matter of taste. But yeah, but you know, the method is the exact same. You know, I sprinkle the cinnamon sugar on top, I turn it on the side, I sprinkle it just on the one side and double bake it. And I only leave mine in the refrigerator for 15 minutes and before I bake it, and that's fine. I've never had it spread too much or anything. So, you know, you can play around with it, but I love your idea of the dried cherries. I'm going to take you up on that one.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank
while I
you.
got the mic, I got a real quick Passover story.
Sure,
It's
sure.
a tradition.
Sure.
And I don't even know how it started, but for probably the last 50 years, oh, can I go?
Yeah.
So for the last 50 years, I have taken out of my freezer the same shank bone for the Seder plate. I put it on the Seder plate. We have our Seder, and I ziplock it back and stick it in my freezer. And all my kids want, I've got two.
Do the same. I do the same.
All they want to know is, who are you willing the shank bone to?
And cheek shank. Very nice, very nice.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you all for sharing. And thank you for that impromptu question, Susan, too, to get some more mandel bread recipes. And we have Rabbi Andrea Goldstein on, and I'll do a quick introduction for her. She is, like I said, the rabbi for Congregation Sher Emeth, and she has been the rabbi there since 1998. She made the call for justice and equality along with the search for spiritual connection. Those are the focal points of her being a rabbi. And she serves on the editorial board of the CCARS Reformed Jewish Quarterly as the chair of the Robert P. Jacobs Jewish Fund for Human Needs, and participated in an 18-month rabbinic training program sponsored by the Institute for Jewish Spirituality. We're so happy to have you here, Rabbi. I know this is in the midst of sending your son back to college, and you had another Zoom tonight, so thank you so much. And I will turn it over to you. Lauren has said you're on here.
I'm here.
Oh, yay!
Hi, I know, there's a lot of you here. I don't know, I can't see everybody at once on my screen, but I was trying to ask, Lauren, can I share my screen or no?
Yes, I just changed it so you can. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, so hi everybody, and thanks for inviting me, and I'm glad that I'm going to be sent a video since I was on and then I was off. So Farilyn, I missed your demonstration. I saw the very beginning, but to see it at home. Okay, so Lisa asked me if I could talk for a little bit about why this year's holidays are different than, you know, all the others, and I feel like you all know why they're different than every other year, right? Like I'm not going to enumerate all the reasons why. Here's where we are. I just want to say that I think part of the difference is that, well, I'll start by saying what's not different. The meaning of the holidays are exactly the same this year as they have been in every other year that we have celebrated them. And so when I say that, what I'm talking about is sort of the essence of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are about the possibility of personal change and growth and not being stuck in bad patterns, and sort of being able to acknowledge that one of the amazements of being a human is that we don't have to stay the same, right? We can learn new things, we can grow, we can change. And that possibility is not, it's not like you can walk into a sanctuary and hear a sermon and magically that happens, right? Or even hearing Kol Nidre, which is beautiful and touches our hearts and sometimes breaks it, but that's not what makes the change, right? You make the change. You choose to make the change. You can be inspired, hopefully, at the holidays to do that, but it's still on you. What's a little bit different this year is that things that were not normally on participants, you know, who come and participate in services, people have to, well, could choose. I guess people could choose to take a slightly bit more responsibility. So what we're missing this year is being able to walk into a space with a lot of other people in the community that inspires feelings of connections and hope. You know, when we're honest, it also, depending on the size of the congregation you belong to, also inspires a lot of aggravation, you know, and eye rolling, and how are we gonna get off the parking lot in time to get home? Like, we don't have any of that this year, so, you know, like, you gotta like look for the positive. But the thing I wanna focus on tonight, and just want to share a little bit about, is this notion of if we're not in the space that we're normally in, you know, what does that mean? And how does that sort of change things? And I want to just encourage us to really think through and be intentional about the space that we will be in, right? Whether that's like at around our kitchen table or in the living room, or if the weather's nice outside on the patio, like what does it mean to be in a space that we're in, you know, normally every day, on a day like Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur that is anything but ordinary. And in order to do that, I just wanted to I brought a few texts that have been meaningful to me, that I've been thinking about a lot, and I'm sort of going to introduce them, and then you know, hopefully leave them with you as like a seed, like planting a seed that you might be able to think and grow these things. So I'm going to try to share my screen. We'll see how that's going. Okay. Uh-oh, where'd it go? Like, I know, you got like the worst rabbi to do this technology stuff. Hold on, give me one second. Okay. Okay, let's see if this works. Yes, can you see? Yeah, okay, all right. So let me move this a tiny bit. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so I want to begin by saying the Jewish people are sort of pre-wired to get through this moment in history, because we, you know, it could be argued that we, more than most other peoples on the planet, know what it means to be displaced. And so from the very beginning of our peoplehood, right, we get into the land, we settle the land, we end up having kings, and finally King Solomon comes along and he builds the temple, which is like the central focal point of the community, right? And like this is where everything happens. And then 586 BCE comes along, the Babylonians come in, and the temple is destroyed. Like the entire way of Jewish life is destroyed. People are exiled, people are killed, people are taken as slaves. A lot of people are exiled into Babylonia. They have no home, right? And Ezekiel is a prophet, one of the main prophets who is alive during this time, and he's talking to the people. Ezekiel says God's words to the people, and God's words are this: "Yet I have been to them as a little sanctuary, a small sanctuary in the countries where they have come. God, through Ezekiel, wants the people to know that it is not the physical building that fosters their connection between the people and God. It's not about the building. It's never been about the building. God says, I will be with them. It doesn't even say I will be with them in the small sanctuaries that they build. I will be, God says, I will be the sanctuary wherever they go. So that's thing one. Okay, then Rabbi Julian Sinclair, commenting on this, says, synagogues, study houses, and even homes are called mikdash me'at, a small temple. The Talmud teaches God will dwell in the holy spaces we create, for they are the temple in miniature. Okay, so the one thing in here, right, like the important phrase, I guess, would be in the holy spaces that we create. So we have to have some intention. We have to set some intention to make some sort. And by the way, holiness, you probably know in Hebrew, the word for holy, even if you don't know Hebrew, you probably know, is kadosh. That means holiness. It absolutely means holiness, but Hebrew is so great because it has different layers of meaning for each word. And one of the layers of the meaning of kadosh is not just holiness, but separate, distinct. Shabbat is a holy day because it is supposed to look different than the other days of the week. Right? So in Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we want to do something. Not everything. I'm not telling you to go like hire a decorator and change everything about your house. Like put in stained glass window. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying be intentional with what is there, and do something to create something that is different. Right? Maybe that is, you know, you're gonna get like a big, beautiful bouquet of flowers that wouldn't be there on the day before, on the Thursday before, right? It's gonna get beautiful, but also the meaning behind it is that you want to create some holiness. Okay, so that's one part. I promise there's only two more texts. Okay, and all right, then I'm gonna sort of take us backwards. So now we left the book of the prophets, and that time I'm taking us backwards to the Israelites wandering in the wilderness. You probably are aware that after they received the commandments at Mount Sinai, God says to them, I want you to build me a Mishkan. Sometimes it's called a Mishkan, sometimes it's called a Mikdash, right? I want you to build me this small traveling sanctuary. And the words that God uses, God says, let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. And then God goes on to say, exactly as I show you the pattern of the tabernacle and the patterns of all its furnishings, so shall you make it. Okay? So, right, Moses and the Israelites are given these, this introductory explanation of the instructions, and then what follows are actually a lot of detailed instructions. But the rabbis, this is one of my favorite midrashim, stories that the rabbis tell, like of all of them. I find it to be so beautiful, right? Okay, so it says, exactly as I show you. That's how you have to make it. Okay, so now we're gonna go down. So in the Midrash, Pesikta Darabt Kahana. Okay, it says, while Moses was on Mount Sinai, the Holy One showed him red fire, green fire, black fire, white fire, and said to him, make the tabernacle for me, its fiery colors. I love Moses, right? Moses says to the Holy One, Master of the universe, where am I going to get red fire, green fire, black fire, and white fire, right? Like, I live here on the earth. I don't even know what green fire is. What are you talking about? And in considering Moses' question, Rabbi Barachias cites the following parable. A king appeared before his steward, right, the lowly steward, in a garment covered entirely with precious stones, and said to him, make one like this for me. And the steward replied, my lord king, who am I to get materials with which to make a garment covered entirely with precious stones, right? Like, you do not pay me enough to go and purchase all of the, what are you asking me to do? I can't do this. What are you asking me? And the king says, follow the pattern with whatever materials you have, and I will still reign in my glory. And so the Holy One spoke to Moses saying, I have stars above and you have the clasps below that will hook everything together. I have standing angels on high and you have standing planks below to make up the walls. You follow the pattern with the materials you have, and I will leave my angels on high to dwell with you below. God says, I don't ask you to replicate something that you cannot replicate. I ask you to take what you have and do something with it. Make some space, God says, for me to be with you. And if you do that, if you make some space, I will be with you. That's it. Like, no questions asked. Do the smallest thing and I will come and you will know that I'm with you. And so I just want to suggest that as we sort of approach, we have still a little bit of time. So as we approach Rosh Hashanah, Friday night, not Friday night, the following Friday night and Shabbat and the second day for those who celebrate, and then Yom Kippur following, we have time. Just think for a moment. Where will you experience these days? Will you be viewing something on a screen? Will you be taking time for yourself? Will you be I know it's not everybody's practice on the holy days, but will you set aside quiet time and maybe journal? Will you know what your schedule is like, so you feel like it was the holidays, right? Like, like, we're going to be here from this time to this time and this time to this time. Can you do something if you're living with others? Can you do something where you're all together, even if it's for the smallest amount of time, even if it's just to share a meal, but that you say, this day is different than every other day. It is still the new year. And I can make it sweet. I can make it sweet. And it's my belief, if we say, like, I can make it sweet in this space where I am, then God will do God's work and add to the sweetness as well. So it won't be the same. It won't be different. And I'm not saying that it will be better, but I am saying it can still be holy. And I'm excited to sort of know what that looks like when Amcha, right? We say Amcha, the people, come together and own this Judaism that is all of ours, and make something for ourselves. So, I wish you all an early Shana Tova, and I hope I've given you like a taste of something to work with to add to Farilyn's sweetness.
You definitely, and people have been asking, will you send that, what you shared on the screen, will you send that to me or to Lauren? And then we can send it out to the participants, because they all obviously, it was wonderful. Thank you. And like I said, I know you had a busy night and a busy week, so we really appreciate your time, and everyone else for coming on here. We appreciate it. And don't forget Coffee Talk next week, September 15th, 8:30 to 9:30. Thank you all, and have a wonderful night, and happy holidays to everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
Lisa.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Farilyn, for
Farilyn.
baking for all of us.
Thank you so much,
You're
Farilyn, for making
welcome.
all that Mandel bread for everyone. We appreciate it.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Farilyn.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Be
Thank
well,
you.
everyone.
Yes.
Yes.
be
Happy
well.
New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you.
Happy and healthy New Year to all.
Yes.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. Happy
Thank you.
New Year.
Hi, Janet.
Hi, Diana.
Thanks for joining.
Great seeing all these people.
It was
It's
fun.
wonderful.
I like the background, Ellen.
I wish I was on the beach with you, Farilyn.
Yeah.
But alas, I'm in
I
my
have a
kitchen.
palm tree right
Sorry.
out my window.
I can dream, right?
Yes.
That's how it
you can.
works.
That's
This is where I
right.
should have been today, but yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, I haven't made it to the beach, so not gonna make it.
That's
So.
okay.
It's all
Carol.
in the
We'll be
mind.
seeing you on the news.
You're right.
Yeah, I don't want to be on the news.
With all those
Farilyn,
crazies on the beach.
Yeah.
you're probably not following the chat, Farilyn, but I commented that yours are by far the best mandel bread ever.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoy it. So now you have the recipe and you can make it.
I know.
I will tell you, I made it last weekend just to test it, and it was fabulous, and it was so easy to do.
Farilyn, if somebody
Yeah.
if somebody was making mandel bread and they crumbled, what's that mean?
And they
The meaning.
probably too long. Yeah, if it got too hard and crumbly. But I still like Madeline's mandel bread. Your
My
mom's
mother's.
recipe it's very different from mine, but it sure is good with all the almond.
But you know, they come out pretty similar.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question. Why is it sometimes called commish? What does commish mean? Does anyone know?
I do.
I think it's just what you
I
called it
don't,
when
you know,
grew
that I
up.
don't know.
But there must be a root to it, some word. It must
Yeah.
Sure, it'll just be.
At our house, it's commish bread, Jane. You're right.
You're right.
Yeah,
Different name, same stuff.
I'll have to
my
ask
mom calls hers commish bread.
We'll have to ask the moms that are still around to
You
remind
think
us.
Siri knows the answer?
Check it for us.
I'll be surprised if Siri knows the answer.
If Siri doesn't, Google me.
I'm checking commish bread
What
right
does
now.
commish bread mean?
I'm waiting.
Yeah.
Commish bread.
I can't find commish.
Siri's answer is about commiserating.
Okay, here's a good site.
Oh, I got it from Google.
This
I
one
got it from
says-
Google. You want
And
it?
this is
Yeah.
what Google
So-
said.
Commish bread, also called mandel bread.
Yeah.
Jewish cookies similar to biscotti. Farilyn, you could have written this.
Yeah.
This bread is twice baked and crunchy. The main difference is it is made with more oil or butter than biscotti, so the resulting cookie is a bit richer and softer.
Yeah.
And that definition is from Pratzel's Bakery.
Okay, so I found something else, Ellen, I found something else that says, one reference, they're saying why it's called different things. This person says, I found one reference on the World Wide Web, so you know how old this answer is, to commish bread, which means almost bread.
Almost.
Oh, there you go.
I don't know if it's right, but that's what this thing says.
Oh, well, here's another one though. So mandel bread is a derivation of Mandelbrot, the Jewish version or the Yiddish version, which means almond bread because it's traditionally made with almonds.
Which is what my mother did.
Yes. Yeah. Susan's mom's recipe is really good too with almonds.
Yeah.
You know, we all ought to share recipes.
You know, there's a bunch of them in the NCJW cookbook we sold 10 years ago called More Than Matzo Balls.
Well, some of us weren't members then. We knew
There's a couple mandel bread, commish bread recipes in there.
Yeah.
I know because one of them was my mother-in-law's.
Well, we could do
We've talked about a new cookbook.
Oh, yeah, I am. Oh, you're gonna.
You gotta get going, y'all. You're cooking now.
On that note, I'm leaving. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Happy healthy New Year to everybody.
We could have a section in the back on mandel bread.
32 ways to make mandel bread and commish bread, right?
That's it.
We could start a new website. It's okay. We'll put a section on our website. How about that?
I'll put my recipe in for takeoff.
Oh, and Ellen, thanks for getting such a big Zoom account. How many can you get up to?
We can go up to 300, I think.
Wow.
So we had 79 on tonight. That was great.
Wow.
That was fabulous.
Yeah.
Wow. This was
It
fun.
was fun. And Rabbi Goldstein's remarks were beautiful.
Oh,
absolutely beautiful.
It was perfect. Yeah. It's really something to think about, instead of just sitting at the table and,
Well,
watching
Ellen's going to pass
services.
it out and we can all use it in our abbreviated home services this year, right,
There you
Ellen?
go.
Yes.
Thank you.
Farilyn, somebody even commented in the chat about your glasses. They love
I know,
people
I
that
was
make
gonna
one's
tell
a
you that
circle
too.
and one's a square.
Yeah.